Sometimes, the most life-changing moments begin on the most ordinary days. Today's story reminds us of a powerful truth. God often calls the unlikely, the hesitant, and the overlooked to do extraordinary things. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Moses was not living in a palace. He was not leading a nation. He was a shepherd quiet, unnoticed, far from Egypt, and far from his past. For 40 years, this had been his life. The once prince of Egypt was now a humble man of the desert, likely believing his most significant days were behind him. But God had not forgotten him. God was preparing him. In the silence of the wilderness, Moses was learning patience, humility, and reliance, qualities essential for the leader he was about to become. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. Imagine this sight. In the dry, quiet desert, where fire is a common and destructive force, here was a fire that defied all logic. It blazed with life-giving light, not destruction. It was a miracle that stopped Moses in his tracks, pulling him from the rhythm of his daily routine. So Moses thought, I'll go over and see this strange sight why the bush does not burn up. It was a simple act of curiosity, a decision to turn aside and investigate the wonder before him. And this is often where our journey with God begins, with paying attention to the moments He places in our path, the moments that make us pause and wonder. Obedience often begins with curiosity. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. God knew his name. He spoke to Moses personally, intimately. The God of the universe called out to a forgotten shepherd in the middle of nowhere. 10 God sighed, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. This wasn't just about respect. It was a profound declaration. The very ground Moses walked on every day was transformed by the presence of the Almighty. Ordinary ground became holy because God was there. This teaches us that any place can become sacred when we encounter God. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. He was standing in the presence of the covenant-keeping God of his ancestors, and the weight of that reality was overwhelming. Then, from the heart of that holy fire, God revealed his own heart. The Lord sighed, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. This is one of the most comforting truths in all of Scripture. God sees, God hears, God cares. The suffering of his people was not hidden from him. Their cries were not lost in the void. He was deeply moved by their pain, and he was not just a distant observer. He announced his plan. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Deliverance was not just a hope. It was a divine, preordained plan. God had already determined the outcome. And then came the moment that would change history. God revealed how he would accomplish this rescue. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Can you imagine the shock Moses must have felt? Go where? To Pharaoh, the most powerful man on earth. Me. God chose a shepherd to confront a king. He chose a man who had fled Egypt in fear to return as a liberator. Naturally, Moses was filled with doubt. He looked at himself and saw only inadequacy. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? It's a question we've all asked. Who am I to do this great thing? Who am I to make a difference? Moses felt unqualified, weak, and insignificant. But God's answer wasn't about Moses' ability. It was about God's presence. And God said, I will be with you. That was the only qualification needed. Not strength, not eloquence, not status, just the promise of God's presence. But Moses needed more reassurance. He asked a brilliant question. Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I tell them? He was asking for God's very identity, his essence, and God gave an answer that has echoed through eternity. God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Not I was, or I will be, but I am, the eternal God, the self-existent one, the source of all being, unchanging, ever-present, and all power. This was the authority Moses would carry. He He wasn't being sent on his own. He was being sent by the great I Am. God continued, "This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation." He was revealing himself not just for that moment, but for all time. With his identity revealed, God laid out the rest of the plan, giving Moses a glimpse of the victory to come. "I will stretch out my hand and strike the Egyptians with all the wonders that I will perform among them. After that, he will let you go." God promised victory before the battle even began. He assured Moses that Pharaoh's resistance would be met with divine power. The outcome was certain because God had declared it, and he even promised provision for his people on their way out. "And so you will plunder the Egyptians." The very nation that had enslaved them would end up paying them for their years of forced labor. Moses was not chosen because he was powerful, eloquent, or brave. He was chosen because God is powerful. He was an ordinary man who said yes to an extraordinary God. His story is a timeless reminder that our weaknesses are no match for God's strength. If God can use a hesitant shepherd from the wilderness to liberate a nation, what can he do with you? God still calls the unlikely. Thanks for watching. If this story encouraged you, please like and subscribe for more.